On a snow-deep Christmas Eve, the wind howled across the Montana plains like a lonely wolf. And inside the small log cabin, standing against the storm, rancher Luke Maddox paced with the restless nerves of a man who had waited too long for something he wasn't sure he deserved. He had ordered a mail order, right after years of silence, heartache, and solitude had finally driven him to admit that a ranch wasn't a home unless there was laughter in it, warmth in it, someone to share the sunrise with. He had written honestly in his letter, "I am not a rich man, but I am steady. I will work, I will protect, and I will cherish." What he didn't say was how long it had been since he'd felt a woman's kindness, how empty every Christmas had felt since his parents passed, leaving him to raise his little daughter, Clara, alone. And now, as snow curled under the cabin door and the fire glowed low like a waiting heartbeat, he wondered if the woman who agreed to marry him, a stranger named Evelyn Hart, would be everything Clara needed, and everything he'd dared hope for. Meanwhile, miles away, along the frozen trail, Evelyn trudged through the storm, her thin boots soaked, her arms trembling not from fear but from the tiny newborn cradled beneath her shawl. Her son, Samuel, slept lightly, his breaths forming tiny white clouds in the icy night. She had not expected to give birth on the journey from Kansas, nor had she expected to arrive at her new husband's home with the shameful truth tucked against her chest. The child was not Luke's. Her fiancé's back home had abandoned her the moment he learned she was pregnant, leaving her alone, disgraced, and with no choice but to accept the only offer of security life had handed her. Luke's proposal through ink and paper. She had written back quickly, promising loyalty, care, and companionship, but she had not told him about the baby. She feared that if she revealed the truth, even a good man would turn his back, and she and her child would be left with nothing but the cold. The stagecoach had delivered her as far as the crossroads, the driver too afraid of the blizzard to continue, so she walked the last mile alone. Snowflakes clung to her lashes like frozen tears, and her heart thudded painfully each time she imagined Luke's shock, his disappointment, his rejection. By the time she reached the warmly lit doorway of the cabin, her breath quivered in the air and her fingers were numb, but she lifted her hand and knocked anyway, softly, as if asking permission to exist. Inside, Clara's head snapped up. "Papa, someone's here," she squealed, and before Luke could stop her, the little girl ran to the door and pulled it open just enough for a gust of snow to sweep inside. Luke strode over and swung it wide and froze. There, illuminated by the firelight spilling into the night, stood Evelyn in her tattered traveling dress, her hair tangled from the storm, her veil half holding a baby so small he looked like a whisper of life. Evelyn swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "Luke, I must tell you something. This child, he's not yours." She braced for the door to slam, 4 harsh words, for the judgment she carried like a stone around her neck. But Luke didn't speak. The wind howled behind her, pushing a swirl of snow around her bare feet. Clara peeked out from behind her father, eyes wide, staring at the baby with innocent curiosity. Luke's jaw tightened on in anger, but in a long, weighted breath before he stepped forward. Evelyn instinctively stepped back, but he lifted one hand gently and said, in a voice deep and steady, "You look like you've walked through the whole storm to get here. Come inside before you freeze." The warmth of his tone broke whatever fragile restraint she had left, and tears spilled down Evelyn's cheeks as she nodded, stepping inside, clutching Samuel close. Clara rushed forward, tiny boots clacking on the wooden floor. "Papa, it's a baby," she exclaimed, reaching out one small hand toward the bundle. Luke knelt beside her. "Ask first, sweetheart," he murmured, then looked up at Evelyn. "May she?" Evelyn blinked in disbelief. "Why is—" "Of course." Clara gently touched Samuel's cheek, giggling softly. "He's warm." Evelyn's chest tightened painfully. How long had it been since she'd been greeted with such tenderness? Luke rose slowly, eyes fixed on the child, then on her. "Evelyn," he said quietly, "you're safe here. Both of you." She opened her mouth to protest, to confess everything she feared he misunderstood, but he lifted a hand. "You came to me on Christmas Eve carrying a child who needed shelter. A woman who needed shelter. I don't know what happened before you wrote to me. I don't know the hurt you're carrying, but a man who turns away a woman in need, especially one who trusted him enough to come this far, that man wouldn't deserve a family in the first place." Evelyn pressed a trembling hand to her lips. "You're not angry." Luke gave a soft chuckle, though emotion thickened his voice. "I'm a rancher, Evelyn. I know that life doesn't always grow the way we expect, but everything worth having is worth fighting for. If you'll have me, I'll raise this boy like he was my own flesh and blood." She couldn't hold back the sob that slipped free. Relief, gratitude, and the slow thawing of a heart that had been frozen too long. Luke stepped closer, placing a warm, steady hand on her shoulder. "And if you'll let me," he whispered, "I'll be a husband to you, not out of obligation, but because I already feel like the good Lord brought you here for a reason." Clara wrapped her arms around Evelyn's skirt as if sealing the promise. "Mama," she said, simply trying out the word, tasting it like something sweet. Evelyn's breath shattered. Samuel stirred, and she looked down at her son, then at Luke, and saw in his eyes, not duty, not pity, but hope. Yes, she whispered, voice breaking. Yes, I'll stay. I'll marry you. Luke smiled soft, tender. The kind of smile a lonely man gives when he realizes he has been given a second chance at life, and he gently took the baby into his arms, cradling him with surprising steadiness. Snow continued to fall outside, but inside the cabin, warmth bloomed, filling every corner with the promise of a new beginning. Evelyn closed the door behind them, shutting out the storm for good. And for the first time in months, she felt truly, blessedly home. And Clara, giggling and twirling beside the Christmas tree, whispered as if stating the truth of the world itself, "Papa, Santa brought us a mama and a baby." Luke chuckled, pulling Evelyn close with his free arm. "No," he murmured, pressing his forehead to hers. "God did.